All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to day three. This is day three of the 5-day Build a Risk Management Plan Challenge. So, all week, as you know, we've been talking about risk management for small firm architects. And our goal is by the end of 5 days, this is Wednesday, it's day three. So, by Friday, um, to let you have the structure to build your own risk management plan. When we're talking about that, we're talking about that in a very comprehensive manner. It's not just hey, I've got insurance or I've got this contract. It's really how you approach everything that you do. And so, as usual, I am joined by Zach Waters. Hi, Zach.
Hey, how's it going?
Welcome back. Glad that you're here with us again.
Heck
If you
yeah.
don't know, Zach is the CEO of Black Swan Risk Management. He is a risk management expert and he works in the AEC world. So, Zach is completely versed in everything that you do, and all the all the good and bad and ugly that happens in the world of architecture. So, it's great to have Zach here all week as our expert. I'm just here. I'm looking at the screen now. Uh, you're all familiar with us here. I'm just here to facilitate. I'm just here to host this conversation. Zach is our expert. He's sharing all of our training this week and put together all the homework assignments. So it's great to have somebody as well versed in these topics um, as possible for these conversations. Benita, thanks for the wave. Benita's in Atlanta. Chris Novelli. Hi, Chris. He's in Massachusetts. Gene, welcome back from Annapolis, Maryland. Is that right? Did I get that right? Chucktown Sean is in the house. Welcome back,
I
Sean.
love that Chuck Town.
From I think from day one. I always love it when Sean shows up because I know Chucktown is in the house.
I love it.
Emma, welcome back from New Jersey. Jefferson he's fumbling in, stumbling, rumbling, stumbling, fumbling from Los Angeles, California. All right, Gene says correct. It is Annapolis, Maryland. Stephanie, welcome back to you as well. Stephanie, where are you? Remind me where in the world you are. I should remember this, but I have not. I failed on the memory test. Fred, welcome from Northern California. Glad
Yeah.
you're joining us today as well. Many of you know Zach. He's no stranger to the Entree Architect and certainly the context and clarity world. He's I think this is still true. You're still the only two-time guest on Context and Clarity Live. I
Oh
think that's
man,
correct.
love it. I love it. The second
So,
time we had we had another guest. We had Steve Litchfield, but
yeah, yeah,
yeah, but no,
yeah.
it's the context and clarity. The entree community. Many of you know who I am. I have so many clients and friends, and it's really fun on Facebook. I don't do a whole lot of content stuff on Facebook around business, but it's really fun to get to know people and actually
Yeah.
see, into everyone's lives. So this is a great community.
Yeah, it certainly is. It is fun. I do love that human and personal connection that we have through all of this. So, welcome to all of you. Stephanie's in Providence, Rhode Island. All right, thank you,
Ooh, okay.
Stephanie. I'm going to remember that. I'm going to remember that. Wendy Brown, welcome. Glad you're joining us today from Massachusetts as well. She says her first hello didn't show up. All right. Well, I don't have an answer for that. I don't know why it didn't show up. Let me look over. Well, I can only see a few comments on the Facebook side, but I know we had this problem yesterday. So if any of you are out there and hey, you say, hey, I'm commenting, I'm on Facebook, I'm commenting, but it's not showing up on the screen, it's probably because you need to give Facebook permission to communicate with Restream. Now, if you've done that in the past, that expires at some point. I don't know the time period. I'm guessing 6 months or so, but it expires. So you may say, "Hey, I've done this in the past. It's still not working." Try it again. There's a URL in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen right now. If you type that into your browser window, I'd suggest a different browser than the Facebook that you're looking at right now because it'll go away. But type chat.restream.io/FB like Facebook into the browser window, and it's literally like 2 clicks, and you give Facebook permission to talk to Restream, and you should be showing up on the screen after that. Beyond that, that's about that's about the extent of my troubleshooting abilities, unfortunately. but that usually solves the problem. That usually does the trick. Luciana, welcome. Glad you're joining us today as well. And for those of you, all I see right now is Facebook, which is great. But if you're not on Facebook, if you're from somewhere else, we're streaming right now to where are we? The Entree Architect Community Facebook group, the Architects and Allies Facebook group, the Entree Architect YouTube channel, the Entree Architect Twitch stream, my LinkedIn profile, and my Twitter feed. So if you're joining from somewhere besides Facebook, make sure you say hello as well. Looks like that number is going up in the upper left hand corner of the screen. So people are starting to find this. Um, it's great to have you from wherever, whatever platform and whatever location. It's great to have you joining us today. Sit Lolly, welcome back from California. And Manuel, welcome back from New York City. I'm looking at both screens. I'm trying to manage all the screens right now. Luciana, I see showing up on Facebook, but I don't see showing up on our restream screen here. So, Luciana, you may try the chat.restream.io/FB trick and see if that moves you over here to the screen. Otherwise, I don't know. We have technical difficulties. We're operating live without a net. We may lose our audio at some point. That actually happened a couple of minutes ago before we went live.
Just gone.
Yeah. And we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, it's fun.
We'll roll with it however we have to. David, welcome. Glad you're joining us from the YouTube side of the world today. Great to have all of you with us. All right. Here we are, day 3 of our 5 days to build a risk management plan challenge. Did you do your homework? Did you do your day 1 homework and your day 2 homework, and did you post it? I saw a couple people posted. If you didn't, okay. My question is, did you do it? Right? Because that's a big part of what we're doing here. You get a little bit of training from Zach every day, and then you get a little bit of homework from Zach every day. So it's a learn and do process all the way through the challenge. And that's the key to success in these challenges is a little bit of bite-sized information, bite-sized homework, but you make small accomplishments every day and you move towards that goal every day because we do want you to get to the end of the week and say, hey, I've learned about standard of care. I've learned about scope. I've learned about site visits. I've learned about communication. And now I have this comprehensive view that's based on Zach's 4S's. I have this comprehensive look at my risk management plan for my small architecture firm. So I want to make sure that you're actually showing up, which is great. Obviously you are because you're here with us right now. I know we had a couple people say that they have meetings or things, so they'll catch the replay, which is perfectly fine. That's a beautiful thing about what we do. The replays are here, the recordings are here, but I also want to make sure that you're putting in the little bit of work that it takes to complete the homework every day because it's really important when we look at whether you successfully have this risk management plan at the end of the week or not. Let's see. Fred says or wants to know, do you have any clue why the audio isn't synced with your lips? No, I don't. I don't have a clue. It may have something to do with our technical difficulties earlier.
Benita just wrote in replying to Fred, Facebook is acting up, leave and come back.
Okay.
So it's a hard thing. I know you guys do this on a regular basis, but streaming 5 different platforms at once, it's amazing that it works out more
Yeah.
than it as often as it does, really.
Yeah. Well, and so much of it is out of our control, right? Because
Right. We were
Zach
just
and I
talking
were
about
talking.
that.
Yeah, we were talking before we went live because we did have a pretty much a complete failure before we went live and had to reboot everything. But it's software and it's bandwidth and it's I have not checked today, but on Monday there was a big, especially on the East Coast, there was a big service outage, internet service outage, and so we're kind of at the mercy of some of these things. So, all right, Fred said that worked. Excellent. I'm
Hey, there
glad
we
that
go.
worked. Thank you, Benita, for troubleshooting that for us. That's fantastic. Ryan, welcome back from New Jersey. Glad you're here as well. All right. Like I said, we're day 3. Welcome to day 3 of the 5 days to build a risk management plan challenge. I gave you a rundown a minute ago. On Monday, we talked about standard of care. On Tuesday, which was yesterday, we talked about scope of work. Today, we're going to talk about site visits. So maybe before we do a deep dive into today's topic. Zach told me before we went live that this is one of his favorite topics. So I know he's going to have a lot to share. I know he's fired up about this. But before we get there, are there one or two questions maybe about scope of work from yesterday? That's what we
Yeah.
talked about. Obviously, we went backstage. Um, those of you that joined us, we had a great conversation backstage yesterday after the training session. So we talked about a lot of things there. That opportunity is still out there, by the way. Let me change the thing here real quick. The caption here. If you hear us talking about this backstage and you wonder what that's all about, and you say, "Hey, I've got a lot of questions. I would love to have some Q&A time with Zach." That's what we're doing backstage. We have the training session every day, and then we have a complete hour of Q&A where we talk about, sometimes it's war stories and case studies and examples, and it's Q&A for an hour. So, two things to know about that. If you are a paid member of the Entree Architect Academy, the backstage is available to you. All of this is available to you as part of your membership. Just go log in on the Entree Architect website, entrearchitect.com. That's available to you. You should be taking advantage of that. And the recordings of all of this are available to you right there through the portal on the entrearchitect.com site. Just log in with your membership there. If you're not, it's still available to you. There's a nominal cost to it. It's $97. Just go to entrearchitect.com/VIP and you'll have access to all the recordings, all the resources, and all of this backstage, all of these Q&A, digging deeper basically sessions. So I want to throw that out there again if you're interested in that. But I guess getting past that, does anybody have a question about um, scope of work? Let's see. Ryan has a question. Let me pop it up on the screen here. Well, if I can find it, that one. Let's pop that one up on the screen. Ryan wants to know, is there any way to get arbitration to not split the baby? It was briefly discussed yesterday.
That's a good question. I have an interesting story about this actually. We did, in fact, I think some of you guys were on. Steve and I did a webinar in January, which was solely on the contract guide that we put out. And so it similar to this, but in a 1 hour, we touched on each topic for about 10 minutes. And one of the follow-up offers that we did with that was at a very discounted price, we're willing to do a contract review and a joint meeting between myself, Steve, and anyone who wanted to take part. And so we do this contract review, and this gentleman is sent over a contract. He's a small firm architect in California, and we're highlighting some things that we would change about it. And one of them was arbitration. And so we're going through all the reasons why arbitration is not good. The attorney that we were working with, it was one of Steve's associates partners, and he probably spent 10 minutes going into like why arbitration is not good. And the guy fired back. He goes, "I'm actually an arbitrator, just so you know." We were just like, "Oh my gosh!" So
What was
this
that?
attorney just goes, he's like, "You let me go on for 10 minutes bashing arbitration, only to tell me that you're an arbitrator." The point of that story is that if I was going to find an arbitrator who wouldn't split the baby, finding somebody who is a licensed design professional is the way to go. Right? That is the best we can do, and it's going to be the luck of the draw. It's again why we don't love arbitration. A judge or a jury is going to have a better understanding and be instructed in terms of what the standard of care is, the duty owed by a design professional. An arbitrator doesn't have to follow that. So the only way to kind of get them on board is to go find somebody that has had experience with it. Selecting an arbitrator, that's not always in your control, right? It depends on what your contract says and all that fun stuff. But it's the luck of the draw, honestly, Ryan. Like it is not, it's a hard thing to affect, but you could push for in your contract, if it is arbitration, then a mutually agreed upon arbitrator or something along those lines, contract language. But yeah.
So as you're marking those up, right? You do that contract review
Mhm.
as you're marking that up. When you see arbitration in there and you're crossing it off, what are you
Mhm.
replacing it with?
So our step process for dispute resolution would be good faith negotiation. Can we just get in a room and talk about this first? Like, does it have to go to that, right? Hopefully we can. Mediation, because mediation is non-binding. Another negative of arbitration is it tends to be binding, and then there's
Mm,
there's no appeal process, right? Mediation, and then litigation, right? Litigation being having an attorney, getting in front of a judge or a jury, having a court decide. And we
got it.
touched on it a little bit in the Q&A yesterday, but as much fun as it sounds to get in front of a judge or a jury, it tends to go well for the design professional. Architects are, we're getting out of the realm of like actual like architecture and into the realm of like jury selection and how it plays in a court and the story that an attorney would tell. Architects do well. They do well in court. Juries like them. They just have a very positive image. So that is something that, if you're selecting your dispute resolution, something that you want to take into account.
Good to know.
Yeah.
Good information there. All right, let's turn this one off. Um, this, so Gary has posted uh,
Yeah, we can see part of that. We contract with a local city agency about ADU. The city and owned by the city. We're told that we wanted the liability to end. This is gonna be a tough one, but oh, Jeff, I can't hear you. Can you hear me? Test, 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 test. Jeff, we lost your sound again. Okay. I think Jeff, if you can, I'm gonna chat you. I think we had this issue, folks. I apologize. We had this issue backstage. In mid sentence, the audio just cut out. I should have the ability to chat him. Okay. Yeah, Jeff's gonna pop out and pop back in. Um, I apologize. There was a question up there, and then I can only see so many on the side, so I can't see the question any longer. But there we go. Okay, I think Jeff. There we go. I'll let Jeff kind of get that sorted out. We'll keep going. And if you've just got questions from yesterday, we'll take just a minute or two here before we dive into site visit stuff. But I think there was a question about scope yesterday. Scope it's just we covered it yesterday. Definitely did a Q&A. It is a tough thing to answer on a broad spectrum. And Jeff and I were talking about this a little bit backstage because so much of it is so specific to you, to your firm, to the contract, to the client, right? So much of it is like we would want to sit in a room and kind of go through a framework and a series of questions to figure out what you're most comfortable doing. But I'll do my best to answer this. So here's Gene's question. So we're taking on pre-contract local city agency about preparing an ADU for the city that will be distributed by the city and owned by the city. We were told that we wanted our liability to end with the handoff to them. They gave us a contract that is traditional, where we might design a building for them that they would want to occupy of our own. That liability extends to that building. However, in the case, we have no relationship with whom they give the plans to. How do you resolve that? Gene, it's a super technical question, but We would resolve it with contract language. So you would get hold harmlesses or a hold harmless clause, a couple different of hold harmless clauses. We'd want an attorney to prepare those, and we would want to get that put in the contract. Kind of, I think the end of your question there is it is tough to limit your liability with everybody. We mentioned that in the Q&A, I think yesterday, limitations liability, which is you can't limit your liability with a third party, no matter how hard you try. So this is also one of those things. I think we can hear you now, Jeff. You there?
Perfect.
There we go.
Yep.
Okay. This is one of those things where when we talk about the deck being stacked against you, I have horror stories of architects and engineers who have done pro bono work for their family members. And 2 years after they did this job, did custom home design for their aunt, she sold the house, and the new owner came in and was a high priced attorney, found some things they didn't like, and sued the architect who didn't make any money on the job. Right? We had a couple in the Q&A yesterday, an architect who was brought into a lawsuit for a project they didn't even win. There was no money exchanged. They were second in or runner up on the project on the bid, and yet that project went into litigation and they were named in a lawsuit. So there are just these types of things that suck. There's no way around it. It just sucks. Um, but I had a church was another one I had. Somebody who did pro bono work for their church and didn't take a fee, and just 6 years into statute of repose on the project, something failed. It may have been the contractor's fault, but everybody gets named in that lawsuit, and that particular claim I think paid out at least 5 figures. And that is covered. Pro bono work should be covered under your professional liability policy, so there is that. But it just doesn't feel very fair, right? You're like, I'm trying to make a difference, I'm trying to do these things, and there's not, you're taking on large amounts of liability. So but Gene, we can absolutely get into that a little bit more if you want, offline. So,
All right.
so
So it sounds like you solved all the problems of the world while I was gone. That's good. Sorry about the interruption there. Not sure what's going on with my audio here, but let's see. Gary says, wouldn't the city be the owner of the plans and own the liability? The plans become their plans.
um, I don't, it doesn't tend to work that cleanly, but um, it would be hard. This is something we would probably want to, we could spend a 20, 30 minutes on, and we would probably want Steve Litchfield or another attorney involved in this, because we're going to get out of my scope a little bit. But um, yeah, if we want to chat about that a little bit more offline, let's do that.
And we will, if we haven't already, we'll make sure that you have all of Zach's contact
Yeah,
information
right.
so that you can reach out to him. John Brunt has a good
Yeah.
question here.
Yeah, statute of limitations, statute of repose. They're phrases that are often used interchangeably. They are not interchangeable. Statute of repose is the amount of time that somebody has to bring a claim against you, and you can get into patent defect and latent defect, and that each state has different time periods on that. The statute of limitations is once somebody has found something that they might want to bring against you, the period of time from when they discover it to when they can actually bring a claim against you. So if you're like me, you learned about the statute of limitations on Law and Order, for how long certain crimes, before we could prosecute this person. It's not quite like that in construction. But I have a document somewhere. Maybe I'll go dig it up, of each state's statute of limitations versus their statute of repose.
Hmm.
10 years is a pretty typical one for most states, but it's going to vary. And a few states out there don't have one, which is crazy. But yeah, it's something that you want to be aware of if you're licensed in multiple states, especially.
Hmm. Yeah, that gets so. I'll give a little bit of background, going back to context and clarity, because Zach was a context and clarity live guest 9 months ago, maybe.
About that, yeah.
And then so many of the questions, as we've already seen, right? It's not cut and dry, right? There's the insurance side, there's the contract side, so insurance and legal. And so we had so many questions where the answer included, or maybe it was simply, we've got to talk to an attorney about that, that we brought Zach and Steve back.
Right. Right.
So we had the insurance and the legal, in the same conversation. And then many of these questions gets into, it depends based on your jurisdiction, that we had Patty Smith, who's an attorney that deals with business entity and all the different jurisdictions. And so that was a series of three different context and clarity lives that all they weren't all the same. I mean, there's sort of tangents of each other, but it kind of I think it's a pretty decent illustration. Patty Harris, sorry, yes. What did I say? Patty Smith, I think. Yeah, I was thinking music, maybe. Patty Harris, sorry. It's a pretty decent illustration of how complicated it can really be. Um, Daniel is asking a question. I think it's a follow up, and I think this one's going straight to the hey, we need to talk to an attorney about this. But I'm going to put it up here in case I'm wrong.
I'd ask the would buyer of the plan sign the limitation liability. Yeah, that's generally what we'd be going for. Again, it's getting out of my scope a little bit, and so I would defer to an attorney, but that would be the general idea. Yeah.
Yeah, and so Gary says that's what they're thinking as
Yeah.
well. So that I love that because it's real world, right?
Yeah.
This is an architect dealing with real world stuff, and um, so thank you for bringing the case study up. Basically, Gary, that's a good one. And again, um, we could continue to dig into this in the Q&A in the backstage later, if it makes sense. And of course, we'll also give you all of Zach's contact information at Black Swan Risk Management. It may rise to the level of a need of a phone call, so
Yeah. Absolutely.
we'll provide that as well. Well, I know this time goes by really, really quickly, and we've got one of Zach's favorite topics on tap
Site visit.
today. Yep, site visits. So what do we need to know? We talked about standard of care. We talked
Hmm.
about scope of services.
Right.
What do we need to know about site visits now? It's probably part of the scope of services. Um,
Hopefully it is. Hopefully we've included that. We kind of did this in that order for a reason.
yep, yep.
And so, our four S's framework, right? What are we signing? We spent the first 2 days on our standard of care and our scope. Standard of care is going to extend into our site visits, right? Or we were going to be very, very conscious not to elevate our standard of care where it doesn't make sense to. But now we're into what are we seeing, right? When we are out on a site visit, what are we looking at? And some huge disclaimers here, which is this is a very gray area. And a lot of people have a lot of opinions on how this should work. And so, if you've worked with an attorney or if you have a manual, if you have a plan at your firm, follow that, right? I'm offering up my opinions, my experience based off what I have seen, but there's a lot of what if questions, and even among very, very experienced people, there's still a lot of kind of back and forth best practices questions. So take everything I'm saying with a grain of salt, because like we just were talking about with the other topics, in the specific project that you're talking about, the specific contract, the specific incidents, there might be, we might need to drill down really deep. But what we're going to talk at a little higher level today, but we will go through some examples. So um, when we start with this, I always want to start with terminology, and I'm going to pose a question to the group. If you can answer in the chat, when I say CA services, what do we assume that CA stands for? And I'm going to wait a second because I want to see everybody's response here. When we say CA services, I want to see, like, what do we assume CA is?
All right, there's the question. What are CA services? What do you think CA services means? Put that in the comment section from wherever you can whether you're joining
Uh,
from Facebook or LinkedIn or YouTube or wherever, you can answer in the comment section from any of those places.
right. There
A
we
lot of
go. So
construction
we've
admin.
a lot of construction, contract admin, construction observation, contract. Exactly. This is what I was hoping to get at here. The title that what the AIAB 101 uses, what the EJCDC documents use, is contract administration. And it's a little thing. It may be semantics. I don't think it is, because if we're talking about construction administration, it is not the architect's responsibility to administer the construction, right? So it might be, it might be a mincing of words, but it's worth noting, right, that the contracts refer to it as this specific way. And to get back to the standard of care, am I taking on more liability if I say construction administration, right? Am I as an architect, am I responsible for that? I'll leave that up to you. I know that now, so it's part of the homework. Go back and look through your contracts, especially if you're working with a city or public entity. Um, does it say contract administration? Does it say construction administration? Right. I know very, very prominent individuals in the industry that still call it construction administration. So, but I went back and in section 3.6, 1.1 of the AIB 101, the architect shall provide administration of the contract between the owner and the contractor as set forth below, yada, yada, yada. So, um, worth noting. um, so we want to get an accurate understanding in a site visit of why we're out there, right? What are we doing? And hopefully, yesterday, if we nailed down a good scope of services, hopefully we got very detailed about what we're going to do out there. So we're getting our terminology right. We have an accurate understanding. Let's go check our contract. We're going to refer back to our contract and we're going to see what we agreed upon. Did we agree to a specific number of site visits? Or I think I brought this up yesterday. I don't remember if it was in the Q&A or not. What is our number of site visits? Is it going to be based on milestones, right? Is it going to be based on construction milestones? And so I'm going to put this question out there again. How many site visits are you putting in your contract right now? When you're hashing out a contract, and I know this is going to be a little bit different for everybody, so just feel free to kind of throw it out there. But is
Yeah,
it
go ahead and
3?
answer that in the comments as well.
Yeah. Is it 5? Is it as needed? I know that these tend to get very, very vague. Um, and is anybody using milestones, construction milestones, as the reason to be out on the site? I'm trying to use the term construction observation. I don't really like administration. Yeah, that's fair. Construction observation, and we're gonna dive into observation versus inspection. Um, observation. I will go as far to say I don't care what your contract says. We've got some language that we can use. Sometimes public entity contracts, or those tougher contracts, will use the word inspection. Under no circumstances, unless I am specifically being hired to do code inspection, am I wanting to inspect anything. It is not my job as the architect to inspect anything. I'm not seeing anybody so far. Number of site visits. So when we're thinking about how many site visits to include, understanding that we would like to not give these away for free, right? Yeah, it depends on the project. Absolutely. I was trained periodically visit the site. That's a good one, Sean. And I think that's common. I think it's very, very common. Periodically visit the site. The question is how periodically, right? And why am I there? Because if something goes wrong and I have, God forbid, taken a picture of non-conforming construction, somehow it didn't get fixed. We're a year into this thing, and all of a sudden, we've got a huge claim, and everybody on the project gets named. I need to be able to back up. I need to be able to note my project file a year, 2 years, 5 years from now on why I was there. And we're going to get into agendas here in a second. If I when I am getting ready to go out on site, whether it is me, the owner of the firm, a principal, or an employee, take the time to prepare an agenda for each site visit, and it should be based on the schedule of construction, right? I need to have a very specific reason for being out there, because so much of the language that could get thrown back on me is is for somebody who would be out on site often, and typically an architect is not out on site often. Yeah, see, John says periodically, right? But what is periodically? Right? My 3-tier proposal, number of site visits, minimum of 5. Okay. So John, are you using, I'm curious, is every site visit after that, is it just ad services at an hourly rate? Or um, I know we're kind of going to go down the rabbit hole a little bit, and every project's going to be a little bit different here, but um, it is really important to have an agenda. The AIA makes a document. I'm blanking on what the number of it is, but it's a site visit report. It's worth developing your own, honestly, if you've got the time. It's not terribly difficult to do. In fact, I want to say, if Mark was on here, that Entree might offer something like this in the suite of documents that are available to members. But if not, I mean, something as simple as more than just a yellow legal pad here, something that is going to keep you on track and that you are going to put in the project file and that we will be able to look back on. And so 2 years from now, 4 or 5 years from now, when something goes sideways, we have very clear documentation of what we saw out there. Certificate of completion now, I don't think we're looking for more of a site report. Um, so let's talk a little bit about observation versus inspection, right? We had our red flag words on Monday, the standard of care. Our red flag words for the day is inspect. Inspect, guarantee 100% in conformance with, and supervise. You are not there to supervise anybody. And frankly, it's denoting power that you don't have over the contractor. That's not my job, and nor do I have the ability to supervise the contractor. That's not what we're there for. We are there to, we're there to be on site, right? We're there to observe. If a client comes back to you and says, hey, Jeff, will you be on site to supervise construction tomorrow? Or, hey, John, when are you coming out to inspect the construction site? This kind of gets back to, our clients aren't malicious. I don't think they're trying to trip us up. They just don't know, right? They don't understand the weight that that term carries in a legal sense and what it could mean if it was determined that the architect was out there to inspect, wasn't doing inspection, and all of the liability that comes with that. So if somebody does that to you, especially if it's in an email, right? Be professional, but be honest back to them and say, hey, I'm not out there inspecting anything. We'll be on site, to observe. That's what we're doing, and we'll be out there, 10 a.m. tomorrow, whatever that is. General conformance with contract documents. That's the big point that I want to take away. General conformance with contract documents, and general conformance is a very vague term. I'm curious, what do we think general conformance means? Because I have an idea in my head of what it means. When I say general conformance, what does that mean to you?
Put that in the comments. What's general conformance mean to you? And while people are typing into the comments, what you just said, most of the clients are not malicious. When you asked the question a few minutes ago about CA, we got a bunch of different answers
Right.
from design professionals.
Right.
And so I think we need to keep that in mind, right? Most of your clients, no matter how sophisticated they are, which was a word that you used on Monday, I believe,
Uh-huh.
um, there's probably going to be some
Right.
semantic confusion.
Yep, and that's what we're trying to expose, that, not to call anybody out, but just so that we can kind of get on the same page, which is this idea of general conformance. Everybody has a little bit different idea. The way that a court has upheld general conformance, meeting the intention of the plan specifications without scope. Yeah, okay. Client wants to make a change. um, General conformance, as far as a court goes, if I specify that a brick wall should be 35 feet long and 10 feet high, general conformance is not me pulling a tape measure out and making sure that it's 35 feet long and 10 feet high. General conformance is me standing back at a distance, being able to, with a naked eye, say that looks pretty close and it's made of brick. So really, really important here to understand what our responsibility is and the duty that we owe on site. And it is, uh, it's not means and methods, right? It is not inspection. Um, and I have a feeling that this is an area that, especially most small firm architects, would elevate their standard of care out of a duty to feel helpful, right? And a wanting to make sure that the work gets done the way that they see fit. And I get that a lot. Um, but it's really important from a risk manager standpoint to back up and say that's just not what we should be doing. So um,
I like Chris's comment here. General conformance is squint one eye and say it looks good.
it honestly, like, it's not that far off, Chris. It really isn't. So we're sticking to the permanent aspects of the project, right? And the permanent aspects of the project are when the contractor packs up their gear and leaves, what's left, right? There are so many ways to do specific tasks that I'm not going to get into. I'm not going to stand there and say, well, I would have done this differently, or anything along those lines. That's not what we're worried about here. Christian says if general conformance is enough, then why do we dimension tiny fractions of an inch? For the contractor to be able to build as accurately as possible, right? But again, understand I'm a risk manager. I'm looking at this from a liability standpoint, right? And I have seen cases like this that are nightmare cases where folks take on too much and then end up getting put in a lawsuit. There was a claim study. This goes back years. When I was working at my prior firm, the details were, I was a landscape architect working on a roundabout and saw some piping valves and manifold, thought it was cool, took a picture of it. About a week later, that particular valve didn't get bled. It let out this huge burst of air, hit one of the construction workers, killed him. The landscape architect had taken a picture of this on their site visit, right? They were out looking at the landscape architecture, not, I think we lost Jeff. They were out there looking at landscape architecture. They took a picture of the manifold because they thought it looked cool because it might make for a nice picture. Well, because there was a fatality on the site, everybody that is involved gets named, and they're getting ready to defend this landscape architect, and they find this photo of the manifold the day before, or not long before this fatality occurred. Does that mean that the landscape architect has liability? No, that's not what that means. Does it mean that they're now very much involved in this case, though, and not going to be able to just walk away? Absolutely. And that's a case where nobody necessarily did anything wrong. We just weren't necessarily being intentional about the photos that we were taking. A worse case would be probably about 10 plus years ago again, uh, a junior staff member gets sent out on site. Everybody's really busy. Say, hey, here you go. You're going to cut your teeth. Here's the camera. Go on out there. Didn't really know what they were doing. Weren't intentional about the photos they were taking. And they took hundreds of pictures of non-conforming construction, came back, uploaded it into the project file, and didn't tell anybody. And that project, had a claim. The project failed, and there was no QA QC process on the firm's part. There was nobody double checking this junior team member to see, what was the report the next day, right? When I went on and did a site report, there was nobody that went through and culled those photos. That person was taking photos the way I take photos of my 1-year-old daughter on my iPhone, which is just keep snapping them until, there's got to be a good one in there, right? Like, that works for me as a parent. That is absolutely not how we want to take site visit photos. And so we had all this documentation of non-compliant construction. And so it was a problem. It cost the architecture firm a lot of money. So these are kind of horror stories, and we use these because this is kind of what can go wrong. But we do have some kind of do's or some principles, which is, so be intentional. That's the very first one where we said that before. Be intentional. Why are you out there? Photographs are your friend if you use them correctly, right? Photographs are a great thing. and this gets back to delay claims and milestones, right? If we are only out on the site for specific milestones, the slab is being poured, the whatever our milestone is there, then we're documenting it both with our report and with our photos. And if it's a week behind schedule, 2 weeks behind schedule, that report's getting sent to the owner. That report's getting sent to the contractor. It's very easy to get out of a claim that way. Um, but if we document through photos, that's photos are the number one thing that can get an architect out of a claim without having to pay anything, as long as they're done intentionally. So don't be afraid to take photos, but use them. I'm not going to say sparingly. Be intentional, right? Use them appropriately.
So if we go back to the example of the junior person,
Huh?
taking pictures like it was your 1-year old, is is the problem there? And I see Gary has asked a question that's similar
Mhm.
to where I'm going is
Yeah.
or going here is the problem is not that they took the pictures,
No.
and the problem is not that they put them in the file.
Right.
The problem is that they didn't have a report or something about what they took pictures of, isn't it? Is that right?
Right. So where they probably really fell down there was on the QA/QC afterwards, right? So yeah, could you go out and take 300 photos on a site visit? Yeah, you could. How many of those should end up in the project file? Not 300, right? That's that. I don't know what the answer is, but I know it's not 300,
Yeah.
and I know it's not zero either. So I don't have a great answer for you in there, but there should be a process where, especially if that's a junior team member, you're going to sit with a principal of the firm, and you're going to go through them, and you're going to check back what was the scope that we agreed to. Why was I out there, right? What milestone was I supposed to be documenting? Because if I'm over here and we're early in the project and I'm supposed to be taking pictures of the foundation, and I happen to be on this beautiful job site with this gorgeous sunrise, and I'm snapping photos over there. Or the scary ones that we get into are um, a contractor. So our rule here is 3 foot and 300 foot. I want to be very, very up close, or almost across the street, kind of getting everything in the photo. What I don't want is that 30 foot, 60 foot view where I maybe snagged a picture of the contractor who's not tied off, who's on the top step of the ladder, right? Something that is a safety violation. And we're going to touch on safety violations here, because I am not responsible for site safety, right? The contractor is responsible for site safety. The only way I'm going to chime in on site safety is if it meets what I call the holy cow rule, which is that was from a broker I knew, been doing this a long time. Said if you step on site and you see a site life health safety violation that would make you say holy cow, that needs to be reported, right? And somebody not tied off, somebody, stories of down eating lunch down in a trench, that is just completely unsafe, right? Those are areas where I will reiterate, we're not taking on responsibility for site safety. I will go find the contractor, whoever's in charge. We'll let them know. We will send an email documenting that, hey, again, we are not responsible for site safety, but just so you know, we saw construction worker who was not tied off. You probably want to do something about that, right? And then it's off my plate. Um, yeah.
S-
So.
So, and John Brunt has a
Mhm.
question about what do you mean by intentional? So that junior person, they
Mhm.
go out, they take the pictures, they sh they should be taking pictures of the reason that they're there,
Right.
which is to your point.
Right.
Why am I here? I'm taking pictures of that. I've got some sort of system in place that then tells me what I do with and about those photos, right?
Right. 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 So yeah. So we're out there on the site for a reason, right? What
Yeah.
is our reason? What are we? And that goes back to our agenda. Did we write down in our agenda what our goals are? Right. What we're looking to document on this particular visit, and then can we stay within that scope? If we need to get out of it, you know, ooh, excuse me. If there are problems in the field, if we are going out with one intention and somebody brings to your attention something completely different, it's not your job to sit there and redesign on a napkin on site, right? It is this is hard because, one of the topics that we've brought up the last 2 days are, should anybody be or should you be doing, uh, contract administration or construction observation in the first place? And we said, absolutely, you should. It goes better for everybody involved. Nobody is more qualified than you to be able to, make, interpretations of your drawings, right? Um, but also, it's not up to you to stand there and be the fixer of all things on the site at that particular moment, right? And I would say resist the urge to fix it if it's something that you even have any questions about, or if it is a junior team member, absolutely, right? Pause, back to the office, reconvene, make a phone call at bare minimum, check in with somebody else, and that doesn't need to be fixed right that moment. You may be getting pressure from the contractor to do it, right? Because we may be behind already, or time is money for construction. I get it, but it's really, really more important that we get this right than we fix it right this moment and risk, a month delay rather than a 12-hour delay. I'm
And
seeing lots of questions that I'm probably not going to be able to answer in this.
yeah, yeah, no,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
okay. I mean, we have time
yeah.
backstage for those. One that I do want to touch on because I think it's a yes or no,
Mhm.
but it's back to the photos. Chris is asking, would taking video be even worse than the probably? I think when he asked that, you were probably talking about the 30 or 60
Yeah,
foot view.
yeah. I mean, I would think so, Chris. Honestly, it goes back to intention. If our goal to take a photo is to capture this specific thing with video even more than a photo, we are more likely to capture something that we didn't want. Even if it's something as simple as other member, sub-consultants, other team members, right? We're getting into another, realm of liability. I mean, this day and age of social media, we post pictures all the time, but um, do I even have permission? Right? Am I let's go way back. Do I even have permission for my contract to be taking photos? Hopefully I do, right? Hopefully it was written in, it should be. But there are very specific projects, in Silicon Valley where I grew up, where you're going to sign a non-disclosure agreement. We actually had a case in my office a few years ago of a Silicon Valley firm that you would know of, that made folks say sign a non-disclosure agreement, and a junior team member was out doing a site visit and starts taking a bunch of photos, posts those photos to their social media site. Yeah, which happened to also coincide with that's what the particular company did for a living, and so they saw it very quickly, and they called the design firm and said, "What in the heck are you doing?" And that firm got fired. I don't know what happened to the employee, but just careless mistakes, right? Just like, again, non-intended. They were out there. They thought it was cool. It was a big name that a lot of people would know, um, and it ended up biting them. So
Yeah. I'll bet we'll talk more about that tomorrow when we talk about communication.
exactly, 100%.
Yeah.
Um, So, okay. So I know we only have a couple minutes here, and I'm sure we're going to have tons and tons of Q&A, which I love. But just kind of a reframe, or just to rehash. So we're going to be very intentional, right? And it is a little hard to define that, but intentional meaning we know why we're out there, we know what we're planning to do out there, we know what we're responsible for, and we know what we're not responsible for, right? And our biggest things on a site visit: we're not responsible for site safety. We're not responsible for means and methods, right? I'm not supervising anybody, and I'm not inspecting anything. I am here to observe, right? Um, we double checked with our contract, right? We made sure that our scope. We are only doing what was in our scope, and if you're out on the site and the owner happens to be out there, and you feel like you need to expand your scope, it gets back to what we talked about yesterday, which is, if we're going to alter the contract, if our scope is going to creep, we need to document that. That needs to be documented on an email at bare minimum, but it's an amendment to the contract and it needs to be treated as such. So we want written confirmation from the client back if our scope's going to creep, if we're going to do more than we had originally signed on for. Our red flag words: inspect, guarantee 100%, supervise. Um, and we want to focus on permanent aspects of the project. Um, I am here with general conformance. What was Chris's definition of general conformance?
It's
Squint an eye
squ-
and
squint with one eye and say
squint
looks
with
good for
one
me
eye. I
or
love
something
that.
like
I
that.
might steal that, Chris. But it is not your responsibility to be out there with a tape measure. It is not. Um, and then our 3 foot and 300-foot rule, which is I want to be very, very up close and tight, or I want to be across the street. Take getting everything in a frame. We didn't even get into phones. Let's do that real quick. Which this is Nicole is not on here. I don't think she may be listening, but she's in my mastermind group on Fridays for the Entree community, and we got into a whole fun conversation about, okay, we're taking photos. Are you taking them with your phone, or are you taking them with a camera provided by the design firm? In a perfect world, you're taking them with a camera provided by the design firm, right? The actual physical digital camera that's got a card. That's its sole purpose. It is used for documenting project sites. When you take it out, you take the actual card out, put it in your computer, upload to the project file, go through your quality process, and then that's it. The thing to keep in mind about phones is all of this stuff is discoverable. And if you're taking project photos on your phone, then your phone is not discoverable, right? Your phone is to a subpoena. And that's not even, I mean, that could be bad because, one, they're going to take your phone, they're going to download it. I mean, any communication you have in there that we're going to get in tomorrow, if I've ever made a joke or said something negative about a difficult client, anything along those lines, right, that could come up. But worse, what if I lose my phone, right? What if all my documentation was on there and I lose my phone? What if an employee was taking them with their phone and that employee quits, right? What do we do now? Hey, Jeff, you can't quit on me. I need those project files, those photos that you've got. So, um, I think Nicole went as far as to buy a digital camera for their firm and make that the policy, just because it's cleaner. I'm not saying that you can't. And the trap of the phone nowadays is that the iPhone camera or whatever phone you're using is probably a better camera than, for the money than you can go out and buy. But from a liability standpoint, it opens up Pandora's box. So
It's going to ruin your presidential run.
it very well
Just
could.
just
Very
saying.
well could. We never say anything negative. We never make jokes. We never do anything like that, right?
Right. Well,
Um,
well, I mean, one thing you just said was you made a joke or you said something about a client, and that's outside of the means and methods and inspecting. That's outside of all of that. But just imagine, just from that one standpoint, right?
mhm.
This went to court. That that phone is discoverable.
Yep.
Someone read that in
Mhm.
court now,
Yep.
in front of your client, right? And obviously one way to avoid that is to not ever say anything bad about your client,
Yeah.
but that, I mean, that's part of the reality that you're talking about. Very small piece of it, but
Yeah,
um,
we have documents from claim files, things like, "Oh, Jeff, Christian was beyond difficult today in our meeting. He said this, this, and this, and I just don't even want to work on this project anymore." And then there's a claim, and then he used or I used my photo or my phone to take photos, and now that's discoverable. And the other side's attorney is reading that out loud, and Christian's standing there in the courtroom, and they're going to read it, and they say, "Zach, when you text Jeff that Christian was beyond difficult and that you didn't want to work on this anymore. Tell me what you meant by that."
yeah,
Right. And you're going to have to atone for all these things. And,
yeah,
we say things casually, especially to, people that we trust, that we don't really want to be read in front of a judge or a jury or an arbitrator. So,
yeah.
um,
The good news is that Christian is building the brand, the grouchy architect, so that fits the brand perfectly.
oh, I knew I could pick on Christian. It happened. I
Uh,
love it. I love it.
all right. Well, it's as usual. This time has flown by. We're past the top of the hour, so we need to wrap this part up. We need to wrap this training session up and go backstage for the Q&A. Um, but I do want to point out, I put this in the comments earlier. I have now uploaded the homework
Oh, yeah.
into the Facebook groups. It's in the Entree Architect community and also the Architects and Allies Facebook groups. And I've even moved it over under the guides section on both of those. So um, go to whichever the Facebook groups, go to the top, find the tabs. One's about, one's discussions. There's one for guides. Click on guide, and then over on the left hand side, you're going to see the guide for the challenge, the 5 days to build your risk management plan challenge. And underneath that is everything that you need, all the resources to date for the challenge, the trainings, the Mondays backstage, um, the homework and everything. So that's the easiest way to find those things, unless you signed up at, let me grab that, the entrearchitect.com/challenge. That was a way for you to sign up. You still could do that, to have everything emailed to you, if you'd rather it come in your inbox. So that was a way to do that. All right, Zach, thank you
Yeah.
for another great great brain dump of a training session. There's
I
so
know.
much here, so much here.
Awesome.
For all of you that are feeling overwhelmed, again, we're going to head backstage. If you are a member of the Entree Architect Academy, this is included in your membership. Just log in, or you should have received the link. Um, if you're not a member, that's okay. You can gain access to the backstage. entrearchitect.com/VIP. That's one way to do it. And let's see, if you need. We're going to have to log off here momentarily and jump on over to Zoom for that. If you need help with the backstage, just message me on Facebook. I've got it opened on a screen over here. I will help you as best I can through that. But if you are a member of the academy, just log in the way you do, and you'll find the link there in that. But just message me if you need help. Happy to help, and we'll see you over there here in just a couple of minutes. Tomorrow we'll be back here for day 4. Day
Yes,
4 of the
sir.
5-day challenge. Can you believe that we're already 3 days through this? Day 4, 1 p.m. Eastern tomorrow, 10 a.m. Pacific, right back here, wherever you are right now. Entre Architect Community, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, LinkedIn, Architects and Allies will be there at 1 p.m. Eastern tomorrow, 10 a.m. Pacific, for day 4 training for the 5 days to build your risk management plan challenge. All right. With that, thanks everybody. Thanks, Zach. We're
Thank
headed
you.
over to Zoom. We'll see you over there in a couple of minutes.
All right.